Yeah,
How
I'd like to
many
see it
people are you thinking about?
All of them. I mean, we're talking
All of the
about
Gazans.
probably 1,000,007 people, 1,000,007, maybe 1,000,008. But I think all of them. I think they'll be resettled in areas where they can live a beautiful life and not be worried about dying every day.
You just heard Donald Trump confirm that he intends on resettling all 1.7 million Gazans. They are not going to be allowed to return home. Now, he already said that he intends on doing this, but what's especially ominous about that statement, aside from the fact that he's just admitting that he plans to do an ethnic cleansing, is the fact that he restated that number again, 1.7 million. Now, before the genocide began, there were 2.3 million people approximately in Gaza. Now, that has changed since the genocide began for obvious reasons, and the official death toll has been around 40,000 to 60,000, but we know that that's an undercount because it's difficult to get the correct information currently as the genocide is underway. Now, there was the report from The Lancet that included direct and indirect deaths, and they estimated that it was near 200,000 deaths. But if Trump is correct, and he knows something that none of us know, and the number is actually 1.7 million, that means the actual death toll is closer to 500 to 600,000 people. Let that sink in for a moment. Now, we don't know if that's the case. I'm just making inferences. This is conjecture. But in truth, we don't actually know. For now, what we do know is that he fully intends on doing an ethnic cleansing. He's just admitting this openly right next to a war criminal that's wanted by the International Criminal Court. Now, a reporter asked, hey, so are they going to be able to return ever? Listen to what he had to say.
Would Palestinians have the right to return to Gaza if they left while the rebuilding was happening?
It would be my hope that we could do something really nice, really good, where they wouldn't want to return. Why would they want to return? The place has been hell. It's been one of the meanest, toughest places on earth. And right now, I've seen every picture from every angle, better than if I were there. And nobody can live there. You can't live there.
In other words, no, they can never return. Now, we're going to get to his plans for Gaza in a moment, but that whole time, if you noticed, Netanyahu was smirking that entire time, because as Trump is describing why they won't want to go back because of the destruction, he never points out the elephant in the room, that Benjamin Netanyahu is responsible for all of that destruction. He did that, and our government was complicit with it. Trump is complicit with it. He's okaying another $1 billion for Israel as he talks about being America first and freezing federal aid when it comes to USAID. But when it comes to Israel, we have money for that genocide. But the whole time as he's describing the terrible conditions in Gaza, Netanyahu is smirking there. That is despicable. Now, later on, at a different portion of their press briefing, Trump laid it out, what he wants to do. And the fact that he admitted this, it's not surprising that he intends to do all of this. These are things that we had hints that he might want to do before he became president. But the fact that he's being so cavalier with the way he talks about his plans, it's incomprehensible. Just listen to what he intends to do long-term for Gaza.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too.
So the United States is going to permanently occupy Gaza. What? We're going to occupy Gaza? I mean, what does this mean? Is it just going to be a U.S. territory? Is it going to become the 51st state? I know that Trump is currently on a conquest to get Panama and Greenland, so what exactly does that mean? He just admitted that on national television. We are just going to annex this entire piece of land when our country literally imposed sanctions on Vladimir Putin for doing the same in Ukraine. Make it make sense. It just is so incomprehensible. And again, it's not necessarily a surprising thing that Trump would float something like this because he has business interests, right? He has a son-in-law who wants to develop in Gaza. It's beautiful beachfront property. Trump has talked about this repeatedly. So his donors and possibly him are going to be able to make a buck off of this ethnic cleansing. But the U.S. is just going to take over Gaza. Donald Trump is by far and away going to go down as one of the biggest villains in history. And there's a lot of villains in U.S. history. But if he actually pulls this off, if he actually does what he says he wants to do, I mean, certainly, it's just, there's no words to really describe this. And as you can tell, I'm really struggling to collect my thoughts because there's not really a way to process what we're seeing here. It feels like I'm in the fucking Twilight Zone. What are we talking about here? We're going to take over Gaza? Now, a reporter asked a very important question. Where the fuck do you have the authority to just annex Gaza? She didn't word it that way, as you're going to see. But he's not going to answer that question, but he's going to continue to say more insane things. Pay attention to Benjamin Netanyahu's face as Trump talks about this.
You are talking tonight about the United States taking over a sovereign territory. What authority would allow you to do that? Are you talking about a permanent occupation there, redevelopment? And Mr. Prime Minister, do you see this idea as a way to expand the boundaries of Israel and to have a longer peace, even though the Israeli people know how important that land is to you and your citizens, just as the space is inherited by the Palestinians as well?
I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent in a really magnificent area that nobody would know. Nobody can look because all they see is death and destruction and rubble and demolished buildings falling all over.
This is quintessential disaster capitalism. We let our developers come in, probably the ones who bankrolled our campaign, and we let them profit off of this. We profit off of this. This is truly morally reprehensible on a level that can't even be articulated. I want to share one more follow-up from Caitlin Collins of CNN. She asks him another question about resettlement and whether or not they're going to be allowed to live in this new paradise that Trump is planning on building in Gaza. And listen to what he has to say.
Just to follow up on what you were saying about the Gazans leaving Gaza, going to other countries. One, where exactly are you suggesting that they should go? And two, are you saying they should return after it's rebuilt? And if not, who do you envision living there?
I envision world people living there, the world's people. I think you'll make that into an international, unbelievable place. I think the potential in the Gaza Strip is unbelievable. And I think the entire world, representatives from all over the world will be there, and they'll live there. Palestinians also. Palestinians will live there. Many people will live there. But they've tried the other, and they've tried it for decades and decades and decades. It's not going to work. It didn't work. It will never work. And you have to learn from history. History is, you just can't let it keep repeating itself.
You just heard him say that we need to learn from history as he's talking about resettling Gaza, doing an ethnic cleansing, never letting them return. Maybe some of them, but they won't want to return. But also, we're going to want to live there. I mean, what the fuck are we doing? Listen, a just world would not let this happen. If the United States was not the global superpower, the world hegemon, we would be cut off entirely from the world economy. There would be sanctions on us for doing this. This is something that no other small country can get away with, unless they're our allies. But since we're the ones doing it, it's A-okay. So, listen, I think that Rashida Tlaib put it best. Now's the time when all the two-state solution Democrats who were complicit with and supported this genocide when Biden was the one that was sending them the bombs, now is the time for them to speak up, because this officially destroys the prospect of a two-state solution. In my opinion, that was never even an option, a one-state solution with equal rights for all, like we saw in apartheid. That's really the only reasonable way to go about doing this. But, I mean, the two-state solution people in particular better speak up really loudly, because Trump is saying that's not going to happen. Palestinians get no state. So this is heartbreaking, because the worst case scenario, the nightmare that we all didn't even want to think about, has actually come to fruition. Donald Trump is doing the thing that we all feared, the thing that Israel has wanted to do for a very long time. It is morally reprehensible. It is heartbreaking for every single person in Palestine who has to continue to suffer and now watch this unfold and are just completely powerless. My heart goes out to them. And as a United States citizen, I want to apologize on behalf of this fucked up, disgusting, and immoral country. We are a disgrace. We are the biggest threat to international peace and stability around the world, hands down. Nobody else even comes close. We are the bad guys, always have been. We're the baddies. We're a terrible country. And this is just one more piece of evidence that we have to illustrate that international law means jack fucking shit. Might makes right. We're proving that. But we might, cite international law here and there if someone that we don't like, an enemy, China or Russia, chooses to do what we do. Fuck off. This country is a disgrace. Donald Trump is a war criminal. And if there was any justice in the world, he would be behind bars for what he's doing. And he could share that cell with Biden as far as I'm concerned.